Welcome to the Big Ben Show with me, Lester Holloway and Alex Watson, through keeping you company for the next hour, talking politics, what's been in the news, what's been in the papers, and having a discussion about how all this affects us as a community. We'll be talking this show about the British Broadcasting Company, yes, Auntie Beeb. This follows news that the Conservative government wants to look at proposals to drastically cut back the BBC. We'll be talking to journalist Anika Allen about whether the licence fee should be scrapped, but also to what extent is the BBC, which has a public service remit after all, serving black communities. The shows that they used to put on in the 80s, what's happened to them? Where is the modern day Real McCoy? Where was the modern day sort of documentaries looking at the experience of black communities? Of course, you probably caught the documentary that was on yesterday and last week looking at Britain's past slave owners. But is this enough? And does the BBC go far enough? And in this debate that we're having about the future of British broadcasting, is race part of that debate? And if not, why should it be? We'll be having this debate, and the lines will be open very, very shortly as well. The number will be on the screen very shortly. So do call in and join the conversation. The number is 0208 808 0693. We'll also be talking about David Cameron's speech this week, talking about combating IS, or the Islamic State, and lecturing black and Muslim students at an East London school, saying that they will be exploited and blown up if they are tempted to join the IS caliphate, as he calls them. But is David Cameron being Islamophobic? Some Muslim commentators seem to think so. We'll be speaking to Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation around 1:30 in 25 minutes, and asking him that question. And we'll also be talking community football as well. Welcome to back once again. Of course, you missed last week, Alex, but always great to have you back.
Thanks, Lester. I've had a good week, thanks. But yeah, I did manage to catch your show last week. So
okay.
Just to make sure that you
behaving myself.
Make sure you're behaving yourself. You did okay.
Okay, thanks. I'm glad I got your seal of approval. And how's your week been?
No, it's been very, very good. Yeah, it's been very good. I did watch that documentary, Britain's Slave
Owners, yes, with David Olusoga. I didn't catch yesterday's because I was enjoying my birthday, right. But I did catch the last week's show. Yeah. And what did you make of it yourself?
I find it very interesting. It's kind of right up my street, that kind of subject area. And I watched last week's on iPlayer, and I watched yesterday's one as it was being broadcast, and I was on the Twitterati timeline as well with it. I think it's good to expose that type of information to new audiences, and a lot of people seemed quite surprised. A lot of it I knew, and I'd been quite familiar with the database where they're getting all the stuff from. It's been open for quite a while now, over a year, I think. But I think it's very interesting. It's opening up the debate again about reparations, But
the show isn't...
We were talking about that last night.
Well, I missed last night's show. I need to catch up with it.
They were talking about it on the Twitter because they had a Q&A after.
Absolutely, yes.
Q&A after.
Because I was interested, and we did have a debate last week with Esther Stanford-Hosey on the show. Exactly. And the points, I suppose the 2 points that she was making that I can remember, was that the show itself, although it focused on the written evidence about Britain's slave trade and how many families got rich, and British society got ridiculously rich off the back of slavery. Yeah. It wasn't really talking about reparations, but it also wasn't talking about the experience from the point of view of the enslaved Africans.
Definitely not. But I think within one program you can't cover everything.
No, it's impossible to do so.
This program's got very, very strong focus on the Britain's slave owners. So we're talking about the owners, not the slaves themselves, and the compensation and reward that they got for that process, and then how that helped to build, industrial Britain, modern Britain, that kind of thing. So to me, what it signifies is the avenue to open and have lots more discussions and lots more programs about the whole slavery experience, and not just slavery, African history and black history, which is not just about slavery. So I think there's a lot more. If the BBC has their history remit, there's a lot more that they can be doing, and this is just one, to me, one slither of that.
Absolutely, yes. And of course, they do some, Black African history programs, but they tend to be on at about 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
So unless you've actually got your, particularly with Dr. Casey, I believe, as well. Right. So, unless you actually got your recording set, then you're likely to miss them, absolutely. Yeah. I know we talked about this last week, but if you do want to continue the debate about the Britain's forgotten slave owners, then you can call, and we'll take your calls on that as well. 0208 808 0693.
I also think that it's that some people forgot them, but others of us don't forget. We're like, if you live in London or you go to Bristol, you kind of look around and go, yes. Wow, all of this, and you, as a person of Caribbean descent, I feel quite palpably, the contribution that my ancestors have made to this country. When I walk in the city and I look at the buildings and I look at all the riches that have been amassed.
Yes, and of course some of the parks around London as well. And if you look at the stately homes, whether it be sort of Trent Park or Chiswick Park and the Kenwood House, and you're thinking, I wonder where that came from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
absolutely. Of course, Kenwood Park as well, which is in Hampstead Heath, yes. Is actually connected because, in a different way, because the person who used to own Kenwood House, the Lord's, I've forgotten his name now, Somerset, he actually took a case before the Wilberforce Act.
Was that the Zonza?
Yes, that was known as the Somerset case, right. And it was, it actually found that, slaves should not be held. I mean, it kind of abolished slavery, but it was a court case that was then ignored, so it then took the Act of Parliament, or the 2 Acts of Parliament, to really deal with this properly. But of course, as the programme on BBC Two pointed out, it wasn't until compensation was agreed that we had any movement. And of course, then it was another 10 years because the enslaved Africans were then sort of indentured labour as well, exactly. for another 10 years.
And there's so much more beyond that, Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's just one programme, and hopefully it opens up the debate. And to me, there's lots of spin-offs that can come from this, and lots more dialogue and discourse, and that we can have, and making the case for reparations and what those reparations might be.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. As I said, later on we're going to be talking very shortly about the BBC and its future, and the extent to which it's serving black communities or not, and we'll also be talking about extremism and David Cameron, funnily enough. But right now, Alex, do you want to introduce our next guest?
Yeah, we've got Ricardo Smith with us from an organisation called Lambeth Tigers, who basically... Well, Ricardo, nice, welcome to the show.
Thanks,
perhaps you can tell us what Lambeth Tigers do.
Basically, Lambeth Tigers is a non-for-profit organisation. We're situated in the heart of Lambeth, the Brixton area. The club's been operating for the last 6 years.
Where do you play?
In Brixton. Well, where's the home pitches? What position do I play? I'm a coach.
No, where does the team play? Where does the team play? Yes. I used to be a goalkeeper myself.
Very important position. We train in Whitesfield Park, which is about 5 minutes from Brixton Tube Station, and we also use Dulwich Park as one of our home pitches. And we also use Ruskin Park, which is not too far from King's College Hospital. So everything's pretty local. Yeah.
So you say not for profit. So why was it set up?
So basically, the club was originally set up in I think 1995. Then what basically happened was the original founder passed away unfortunately through cancer, and then 2 of these former players basically ended up reforming the club and kind of running with it, and from there the club's kind of just grown, and it is at the stage where we are now. So
do children that come to the camps pay a fee, and that gets ploughed back in, or how does it work? Do you have to raise funding?
Well,
how do you operate the club then?
So the way that the club's currently operating is that the kids pay a subscription fee for the year. So what that fee practically covers is they're getting their training where their insurance for playing in the league, covering the cost basically. But by the time we've taken all that money out, we're still operating in kind of a loss. So it's a bit difficult at times, but I think, as you said, going back to the reason why the people have set it up is to offer a sanctuary for a lot of young kids in the community who probably don't have the opportunity to kind of go out and afford certain things, you get what I mean? So the way that we have to do it is that...
So is it about diverting them away from activities that perhaps they shouldn't get involved in?
Well, yeah. I'll definitely say that. I think the environment where a lot of the kids are living, even though we do have some of are players coming from more affluent areas like the Richmonds, some even coming from Kent, Brighton. For those who live in the more local surroundings, like the local estates in Brixton, I think that having a provision like ours in place definitely offers a safe haven and an educational experience. It's not only about football, so that's what we're trying to encourage the kids to kind of come to us.
So what else is it about then, apart from football?
I think if you come, you're definitely invited to come down and see what we do. But
thank you.
I think a lot of people see Lambeth Tigers as just a football club, but there's a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes to ensure that the kids are kind of steering clear of getting involved in all this criminal and gang activity that is rife within the community.
So what sort of things do you do to do that?
Well, just this weekend gone, we took a group of boys, I did, to the Gothia Cup, which is probably the biggest grassroots competition in the world. They had over 1,000 teams involved in that. And basically what ended up happening is a friend that I'd known for quite a long time, he set up a charity in Ghana, which also looks after kids, very similar to what we do at Lambeth Tigers. So I managed to pick 7 players that I thought would benefit from this experience and took them out to Sweden. And basically what they ended up doing was meeting up with a group of players that they had never played with or had never met. And the team that they met with consisted of boys from a international school in Ghana, one of the biggest. It's called Lincoln in Accra. And they also had some of the local boys from more deprived backgrounds as well. So I think that giving them that opportunity to kind of mingle with these kind of people from different backgrounds was very beneficial to them. While we were out there, we were able to kind of go through how could I say? What I wanted to do was grasp where their mentalities were prior to the kickoff of the tournament, because we got there a day before everyone else. So we sat down and done basically reviews. So I asked them what they hope to benefit from attending this trip and what they want to get out of it and what they feel that they could bring to the tournament and what they could take away from it and bring back to Lambeth Tigers. So in a nutshell, I think that we offer a mentoring service as well as top quality footballing provision.
Mm-hmm. How do you see some of the young people that come into your club? How do you see them maybe evolve as they build their confidence and then as they get better at their footballing skills?
Well, the way that the club's actually broken up is that we run it very similar to a professional academy. So it's broken up into 2 areas: the foundation phase, which is our under 6s up to around our under 10s or 11s, then the development phase, which is the under 11s to the under 15s. So what you would be trying to look at from the younger age groups is more about developing their social skills, their individual performances, and just wanting the kids to enjoy it. As they get older and move into my area, it's more of the business end. So things start to get a bit more serious, where we start to look at the character, because what we try to make people fully aware is that football is more about having a complete package nowadays. You could be talented, but if your attitude ain't correct, then you're not going to have a long, successful career in the game. So, yes, back to the question that you asked is, over time, what I've started to see, especially again, coming back to that trip in Sweden recently, is that you're getting a lot of people starting to kind of be a lot more vocal. Their communication skills are improving, and they're able to kind of lead a team as well as just being a member of a team. So,
are you getting any budding footballers that are going on to be professionals?
Well, at the moment, as it stands, my understanding is that we have around 75 boys in different academies. We have boys at Crystal Palace, Arsenal, Chelsea. We also had a few boys going to the England under-16s and train with them. So we're having a lot of positive things happening. I think in the next few years, we're hoping that you'll start to see some of our boys playing on the television.
You should get some selling on fees as well.
How do you feel especially the young ones, but also the old ones? How do you think they relate to what they see on the TV? And when you see things like Premiership footballers, and do they talk to you about that kind of stuff? And do you think it has an influence on them?
Yeah, I think 1,000,000%. I think the one that's probably standing out to a lot of people at the moment is the Raheem Sterling deal,
yes,
which is the hot topic of discussion at the moment.
What kind of things are they saying about that? Because it's the most expensive signing.
Well,
British signing, yeah.
British £49 million, which is an awful lot of money, especially at a young age. So the gap between Raheem Sterling and some of our oldest players at the club is probably like maybe 5 years. So they probably look at that and think, wow, it's something that's definitely within their grasp. But I think the discussions that have been coming up is that, he's a traitor, Raheem Sterling is this, Raheem Sterling is that. what I would say is that unless you know the intricate details of what actually happened, you can't really delve into it too much. I think
Some players just simply want to win trophies.
well, that's
Which
what
is,
they
quite
say.
frankly, it's not going to happen in Liverpool. Let's be honest.
Liverpool's one of the most successful clubs in the world football.
Yeah,
so,
20 years ago. But anyway, let's move on.
Kids are watching.
He's a very talented player. For me, what I would say is that it's about being happy. And if he feels that he's going to be more happy at Manchester City.
Yeah. I think we've also got a caller on the line now. Good afternoon to you.
Hi, good afternoon.
I can't hear a call. Hello, good afternoon.
Hello?
Hello, good afternoon to you. What's your name?
Yeah, hi, Prince calling from London. Just want to commend the job that the gentleman is doing.
Yes.
My question is, does he see the future for some of these youth being able to play for a major club in the United Kingdom, and as he seems to take them across Africa and other places, if they couldn't make it for UK or British team, does he see possibility of them being able to play for their maybe other country?
Yes, Ricardo?
Okay. I didn't really hear the first
I think
part
what he was
too.
saying was.
Go on.
I think he was saying, do you think some of the kids, if they don't go on to play for England or teams in this country, do you think they could go on to play for some maybe African or other countries if they come from that background?
1,000,000%. I think, as I said, it's about us encouraging the right things and the right types of behaviour.
Yeah.
I feel that it's a bit difficult now because a lot of people really want to wear that England shirt. I don't know what that's all about, but I think.
Why isn't Raheem Sterling playing for Jamaica? Because he was born in Jamaica.
You got Daniel Sturridge, another.
Daniel Sturridge as well, yes, going back to
there's
John
a lot of
Barnes,
players.
yeah.
I think the way that we've looked at it, I think we ran through a list of players that could potentially qualify to play for a number of different Caribbean or African countries. Welbeck at Arsenal, he's Ghanaian. So these are things that you probably look at and what would those countries, where could they possibly be now if you had all of these players playing?
But it's an interesting point, isn't it? Because players that are particularly talented seem to hold out for England. But if you're not quite there, like sort of the Emmanuel Frimpongs of this world, then you're actually going to you're actually going to play for Ghana or the African countries that your families are from. And you've even got actually some white players in the sort of lower divisions that seem to be playing for South Africa for some bizarre reason. But why is it that the most talented will play for England and those that don't quite make it at the top level then play for their parents' country?
I think first and foremost, the infrastructure and how England, the national team set up is very, very well organised. So you'd have to give them credit for that. No disrespect to a lot of the African or Caribbean countries, but you have a lot of players going in, and it's very, very sketchy to put it in the nicest way possible. So you think if you get that opportunity to go and play for England, there's a lot of perks attached to that. You could probably increase the longevity of your career as well. So I think a lot of people bear this in mind and take that into consideration as well.
Absolutely.
But, back to the gentleman's question regarding what we encourage. And if we feel that we have any players amongst our current crop of boys that we feel could go into these African countries or the Caribbean countries and play for them, we would definitely promote that. I feel that it's very important to know your heritage and where you're coming from and to support that and promote it.
Definitely. We're just, time is against us, but we're going to take a short break now. Thank you so much, Ricardo. We hope to bring you back towards the end of the show as well, so don't go anywhere. And we'll be coming back after the break, speaking to the journalist Anika Allen, who's got some views on the BBC, the future of it, especially given the current debate about whether the BBC should be cut back and the licence fee perhaps should be abolished. But to what extent is the BBC serving black communities? Has it lost its way? And where are the shows that we used to see many years ago, which were sort of aimed at and targeted at black community? So we'll be talking about that, and we'll also be talking about terrorism and what David Cameron plans to do about it. Is he on the right track or not? So stay with us, and we'll be back after the break.
Something special is happening at Trinity Chapel as we advance in our year of manifestation. We welcome the General Overseer of the Redeemed Christian Church of God, Pastor E.A. Adeboye.
The night of sorrow is over. All those nights of weepings can now be replaced with the morning of laughter.
Host, Pastor Yemi Odusolu. The venue is Trinity Chapel, the Discovery Centre, Jenkins Lane, Barking, IG11 0AD. The date is Sunday the 26th of July 2015 and the service starts at 11 a.m.
Let someone shout hallelujah.
Keywrite, specializing in all aspects of property lettings and management. If you have a property, tenanted or empty, contact Keywrite on 0208 808 5789 or you'll be sure of expertise, competitive pricing and first-class service. Visit www.keywrite.co.uk. Telephone 0208 808 5789. Keywrite, the right key for your property investment.
You work hard each day because of them, those who matter most. World Remit works with you. We enable you to instantly send money to Africa when they need it. WorldRemit.com. Download.
Breakfast Show.
To the Big Ben Show with me, Lester Holloway and Alex Watson. We forgot to give the details of our last guest. It was Ricardo Smith, and his Twitter is Lambeth Tigers FC. If you go to the Ben TV Twitter account, which is Ben Televisions with an S at the end, we retweeted his details, so you can find him there if you've got children that you want to join the Lambeth Tigers and go on to be the Raheem Sterlings of the future or the next 5 years. Right now we're going to be talking about the BBC and whether it's serving black communities very shortly. But first, the news this week was that David Cameron, our esteemed Prime Minister, announced or gave a speech which was tackling terrorism, and he appointed a new integration czar, Louise Casey, who's already come under some criticism because she seems to be the czar of everything that any government wants a czar for. But her credentials in relation to engaging with Muslim communities or understanding Islamophobia have come under scrutiny. First, we're going to speak in a minute to Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation, but first let's have a look at what David Cameron actually said.
Wherever we're from, whatever our background, whatever our religion, there are things we share together. We're all British. We respect democracy and the rule of law. We believe in freedom of speech, freedom of the press, freedom of worship, equal rights regardless of race, sex, sexuality, or faith. We believe in respecting different faiths, but also expecting those faiths to support the British way of life. These are British values and are underpinned by distinct British institutions. Our freedom comes from our parliamentary democracy. The rule of law exists because of our independent judiciary. This is the home that we're building together, whether you're Muslim, Hindu, Jewish, Christian or Sikh. Whether you were born here or born abroad, we can all feel part of this country, and we must now all come together and stand up for our values with confidence and with pride. We should challenge the ludicrous conspiracy theories of the extremists. The world is not conspiring against Islam. The security services aren't behind terrorist attacks. Our new prevent duty for schools is not about criminalising or spying on Muslim children. This is paranoia in the extreme. In fact, that duty will empower parents and teachers to protect children from all forms of extremism.
That was just a little clip there of David Cameron and the speech he gave there behind the sign saying One Nation under a groove. And right now on the line we should have Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation. Good afternoon to you, Mohammed.
Good afternoon, Lester.
Thanks very much for joining us. Now, you would have doubtless been paying some close attention to that speech that we just played a clip of. David Cameron speaking about tackling extremism. I know you wrote in The Guardian about it. But let me ask you, has David Cameron got it right?
No, I think David Cameron's got it wrong. The vast majority of British Muslims accept that we have a problem with a small minority of people who are involved in terrorism, and we've got to confront them. That's what many of us have been doing over these last 10, 12 years. Some of us have suffered death threats as a result of the work that we do against terrorism, and still the Prime Minister thinks we're not doing enough. And one of the other issues that he conflated, dangerously I believe, is that he conflated the issue of integration and cohesion with security and terrorism. And we have a huge problem in this country. The black lives, Asian lives, don't seem to matter for those in authority. So either we deal with issues of institutional racism, whether we do the lack of opportunities both in our politics and our public life, but also wider within employment, and whether we look at the issues around security. So I think, the Prime Minister was wrong, and just shows you that this was a neoconservative inspired speech written by somebody from the Qudding Foundation who claims to be a liberal.
Yeah, but surely those two issues that you touched on are not mutually exclusive, that dealing with issues of institutional racism or Islamophobia, I mean, some people would say, they absolutely understand where you're coming from, but at the same time, if David Cameron is warning against the lure of Islamic State and talking about the dangers of doing so, then what's wrong with that?
Well, look, let me say this to you, Lester. I agree with the Prime Minister that we have a unique problem. There are people within the Muslim community who are joining a barbaric and evil organisation. There's an ideology behind it, and we've got to confront it and we've got to expose it. And, honestly, as Muslims, have we done enough to tackle that?
But are you sort of saying, and you seem to be saying from your article, that because we're talking about such a small minority of people within the Muslim faith, that in many ways this issue has been souped up perhaps for political gain by the Prime Minister? Is that your view?
Yes, I am. And the other thing the Prime Minister has not done, he has not engaged with the Muslim community at a grassroots level. And that's one of the things when I talk to young people, particularly young Muslims in this country, the one thing they hear is that ministers and government ministers haven't engaged. And when the Prime Minister was asked this week by ITV News, I was quoted in that question. Ramadan Foundation says that you're not engaging, Muslims. He didn't have an answer for it. And actually, that's the problem. That if you want to engage young people, if you want to talk to them about the issues, and want to hear firsthand how we deal with the issue of terrorism, then you would want to engage with people.
Perhaps he has engaged some other people, and maybe you guys weren't included in that, because I know we had a lady several months back who said that she was doing some stuff as a part of is an Islamic body down at the Houses of Parliament and that kind of stuff. Do you think that David Cameron has any kind of point with regards to saying that people believe that there's some kind of conspiracy against Muslims, and do you think that the young Muslim people that you speak to feel that this government is targeting them?
Hello, Mohammed, are you still on the line?
I am. I apologise for that.
Did you hear the question that Alex just said?
No, I didn't, Alex. Sorry.
Okay, just...
oh, sorry.
Yeah, take two.
Yeah, I was saying... we had somebody in several months ago who was saying that they were on some kind of Muslim task force that the government has been, speaking to. So perhaps they have been speaking to some organisations, because in his speech he did seem to kind of head a lot of arguments off at the pass in terms of saying, there are no conspiracies against Muslims, we're a fair and equal society. He tried to kind of put those things to rest, even if even if some of us don't have that experience. Do you feel that the young people that you speak to believe that they are being targeted as Muslims in this country?
The Prime Minister has said that he has only engaged with one organisation, the Quilliam Foundation.
Right.
The head of that organisation, Majid Nawaz, is claiming that he wrote the Prime Minister's speech. The vast majority of British Muslims have not been engaged. And if you say that, terrorism is uniquely a Muslim problem, as the Prime Minister claims, that the Muslim community has an added responsibility to deal with this threat, then you surely should have that engagement. We know the Prime Minister meets on a regular basis with members of the Jewish community. We're asking for that similar opportunities to be given to Muslim organisations. I'm not arguing for me to be at the table. I'm arguing for the Muslim community, various organisations to be represented there.
David Cameron has now appointed an integration czar, Louise Casey. Do you have confidence that she'll be doing the right thing?
Well, Louise Casey's got a very distinguished record when it comes to tackling some of these issues. She did a very good report into troubled families. She did some good work on the Rotherham child sexual abuse cases. If she's really up for the engagement and talking to young people and really getting to understand the real issues that we face, then certainly be confident in her and her ability to do that. But there's a wider issue at stake here: the equality, race equality, tackling Islamophobia and racism, and issues that affect the black community and the Asian community have been marginalised by the last coalition government, but also by this government. And all our issues, common issues that we face on tackling, for example, as Theresa May today announced, death in custody. You can have as many inquiries as you want. If you don't implement the inquiry's findings, we won't get progress. So I think these issues are not unique to our communities, but we've got to confront it. And if the Prime Minister is really serious about tackling these issues, if he genuinely wants friendship and he genuinely wants a partnership, then he's got to reach out to our community. He's got to reach out to all communities and build that one nation he claims he's calling for.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us on the line there, Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation. And if you've got any views about the issue of tackling extremism, if you think that David Cameron is on the right or the wrong lines, you can call in now. The number will be on the screen shortly, 0208 808 0693, if I can remember it correctly. But right now, let's talk about British Broadcasting and the BBC. The BBC Trust, which is the organisation that sort of runs Auntie Beaver's, launched a consultation asking viewers to give views about how well they are performing. One of the questions that seemed to be absent, though, was the extent to which the BBC is serving black communities. So with politicians, particularly from the Conservative Party, talking about whether the BBC should be cut or reformed, whether it's sort of treading on the toes of commercial broadcasters. Do we need to introduce a new element to this debate, which is whether the BBC and indeed other broadcasters are serving black communities, and what's happened to all the shows that we remember, like the Real McCoy in the past, that where are they today? Joining us to discuss these issues is the freelance journalist Anika Allen. Welcome to the show, Anika.
Hello, thank you for having me.
Okay, now the BBC seems to be fighting for its life. They're doing a consultation, as I mentioned, with their viewers, but not asking questions about whether they're serving black communities.
Yeah. They have been asking questions in the last year in terms of diversity and making changes within the BBC in terms of, having a diversity fund where they kind of give money for ideas created by the BME communities, trying to give training for graduate interns from those communities, as well as kind of senior leadership and positions. But I guess the question is that still going to be enough?
Well, is it?
I think that there's definitely more that they need to do. I think
such as, what would you like to see the BBC do?
Well, more money put aside for productions from production companies that are black-led, also having kind of writers, producers, directors from the communities working on stories that we can relate to. Because the problem is we have, you mentioned the Real McCoy,
I mean, I love the Real McCoy. It was amazing.
It was of its time, though.
But it was of its time, and it came, and it's been over 15 years. Why are we still talking about? I mean, I know that exactly. But that's
Exactly.
exactly.
That was on last week, Javon Prince.
Yeah, so the Javon Prince show, obviously, it's amazing. That's something after, you know, over a decade that we've got a black-led comedy on BBC. However, where was it marketed? How did people know about it? In the slot that it was in, it lost in the ratings because of that.
Well, see, I mean, the BBC has been doing one or two shows, you know, over the last few years, but they seem to be stuck on BBC Three and other digital channels that nobody seems to watch. But we're talking about the sort of headline time of sort of 8 o'clock on Saturdays, aren't we? That's where we want to see some black shows.
I think that obviously we have to understand with the BBC that, you know, they have to try and create something for everyone, which is hard to do when you're trying to kind of cater for people outside of kind of London and in the other areas around the UK. However,
but if they're showing a period drama which doesn't have any black people in it, so nobody asks questions about whether it's actually catering for all communities.
Well, this is what I guess the point that I was going to make in regards to that is that the problem isn't that saying that we want black shows. We want shows that have black characters in them or a black-led cast, but are telling stories that are representative of our community, not just the same stereotypes and perceptions that we see on a TV on a day-to-day basis. You know, when you look to the States, you know,
so
you'll have
quality as well as quantity.
Exactly. You know, a lot of young people are watching TV shows online. You know, they're watching shows like Empire, Power, Being Mary Jane. These are shows that have black characters, are aimed at black audiences. However, anybody can watch them because anybody can relate to the stories. And I think what the problem is that the kind of shows that have been on the BBC, not everybody can relate to those stories, or we just see the same old stereotypes, and we're sick of that. We're bored of that. We want to just see, you know, black people, women, men, young people on TV that we can relate to, that remind us of, you know, our parents, our sisters, our brothers that are doing normal everyday things, you know, experiencing family life that anybody, whether you're black, white or Asian, can still relate to. Just because it's a black cast, it shouldn't matter.
Alex?
Yeah. No, I was going to say, do you believe that the BBC, in terms of its license and remit, then, how do you feel about that? Do you think that we should be paying a license fee then if we're not being represented?
In terms of the license fee, I guess it's change or die really with the BBC, because eventually they're going to have to think about other ways in terms of how to make money, because we've got so much options now with subscription services. And so we are going online and watching things. We are creating our own content online, you know, from Venus versus Mars to Ones and Twos to Dear Jesus. There's so many different online shows.
That I found the other day called Black and Sexy TV.
So
that's based in the States, which has several quite, you know, different shows and things. And there's a subscription. Cecilia Miyake is doing her strolling series, and you can subscribe to a couple of things there. I mean, I hardly watch the BBC.
But the good thing with say like Black and Sexy TV and some of the American broadcasters, they're seeing that the online content, and then they're employing that talent. They're employing the writers, they're employing the directors, and they're employing the producers, and saying, actually, we've got faith in you. We're going to give you a budget. Let's make content for, you know, HBO, CBS, and, you know, we're going to give you the platform. Whereas over here, at the moment, it kind of feels like you're giving us the money for training. Like, I don't feel like we need more training.
Yes.
We need the platform to be able to get our voices heard. And so,
and to be fair, I mean, I worked on a cross broadcast cultural initiative probably over 10 years ago, and it was the same thing. You know, it was not having enough black people or people from, you know, different backgrounds behind the cameras, behind the scenes, in decision-making positions, using production companies. And then, you know, you've had the debate of production companies saying, or a lot of the argument was, are black companies making content that is universal enough, and are we telling stories that are too niche, you know? But I still think our stories have a right to be told, and we should be given the platform. And at the moment it's skewed, and it's actually gotten worse, like you said, because when I grew up you had things like No Problem on a kind of prime time slot on Channel 4. Then we've had kind of Desmond's, The Real McCoy, and these are all successful shows that, you know, you have to just go online.
But those shows surely show, Anika, that actually when it comes to producing sort of majority black shows, they can reach out, they can be popular with the mainstream. I mean, Desmond's was extremely popular. There was was no sort of complaints that everyone was black, because obviously it was a black barbershop, so it was stood to reason.
No,
But, as long as people can buy into the characters.
I agree that we can make successful shows, and so that's why is there a problem today for us not being able to be given the platform
So
to
should we be
continue
able
doing
to
that?
sort of opt out? So, for example, following Alex's question about the license fee, if people feel that there's not enough black shows, should they opt out of the license fee?
Well, at this point in time, I can't see an opt-out option becoming available. So what I feel that we should do is we should have more, because I guess you think about the amount of black people that are in the UK, and if you look at that amount in the licence fee, I think it probably equates to around 250 million. So I'm not expecting them to give us the whole 250 million, because a lot of black people watch EastEnders. A lot of we watch the news, we enjoy the content.
But the black characters on EastEnders are written by white people, so there's very little that's authentic about them. This has long been the complaint over many years.
Of course, and that has been a complaint in regards to TV, in terms of the representation of characters and in terms of how they're portrayed. You usually have the stereotype, the gangster, the drug dealer. It's always the same characters rehashed. And I think there definitely needs to be a change, and it'd be great to have more black writers behind the scenes on shows like that. However, in terms of the money, I feel like there should be some ring fence as a pot given to black production companies or black writers, producer and directing teams. That obviously will be inclusive as well. I'm not saying the teams need to be exclusively black, but having their voices as lead, because sometimes when you're in, having worked in TV production as well, if you're in a production meeting and then somebody's talking to you about, black character or a storyline in regards to black people, and if you're in a room that's kind of everybody else's white and you're the only black person, and they're saying, oh, this is what we should do with the character, then sometimes I can understand why sometimes that person might feel might not feel like their voice is going to be heard if they speak up and say, actually, no, I don't think the character should do this. And they're worried about their job, they're worried about trying to kind of excel in the industry.
It speaks to workplaces across the board. Just
exactly.
Every profession, really, doesn't it?
Basically.
So basically, it's just about being assertive. I suppose if you're in a production company, if there's any people that are working in production companies and they're the kind of the lone black wolf in the building, I suppose it's just about I suppose it's about having to be assertive and having your voice heard. But I do understand that we do kind of face this kind of whether it's fear that some people have of wanting to toe the line. Jobs are difficult to find, especially in the media. It's such a popular field, but I think we have so many stories that need to be told and that can be told and that I would like to see. And I think the BBC needs to reflect that. Otherwise, I don't want to pay it, because I hardly watch it anyway. I go online and watch most of my content.
And you'll find that's the same with a lot of black people, because obviously remember as well with the BBC, it's not just TV, it's also radio, and and you'll find that people from BME communities are all going online or to listen to podcasts and to kind of watch TV and to watch content when they want it.
We have a call now, a caller on the line. Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you now. What's your name and where you're calling from?
G.
Hello?
Yes, okay. What's your question?
It's not a question, it's just to support the movement you are pushing across in order for people to realize that they need to put more of the black community into what they are doing on the BBC. Maybe behind the camera, the crew, and what have you. Because nowadays, if I watch some of this program on the BBC, I will know where it will end. Like all this, what they call it, this showbiz show like Simon Cowell, Richie's Got Talent.
I'm sure we were going to get around to Simon Cowell eventually. So do you believe that the BBC is not reflecting you?
Honestly. And these are the things that we are talking about. All what we need to do is to push it more further. Please, we need to push it more further in order to note that we have very good professionals that are black, that are in this country, that they need to work with. And that is what we are talking about. Keep on pushing this information to them and let them make use of good of it. That is what I want to contribute. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you so much for your call. Anika, I don't know if you caught all of that, but what's your response to what the caller has just said?
Definitely, we do have people of all professions from the black community that are experienced in all areas. And when it comes back to the BBC, it's using those diverse voices, not just on the race issues either. It's about thinking about, other areas, whether it's politics, whether it's, education. There's people in positions of power from the black community that can speak on these topics. That when it's time when they're looking for a correspondence, it's like, don't just go for, the same person that you always do.
Well, of course, the BBC, I think about a year or so ago, did actually announce this sort of exercise. I think it was called BBC Talent, to try and reach out to all these, experts, in different communities that could speak about education or whatever. And the question I had at the time was, why did it speaks volumes the fact that the BBC needed this exercise at all. If they look at all their contacts that they have in their files for, say, education experts, and they don't have any black experts there, that surely is a shame on this institution. The fact that they now need to reach out to find these more diverse voices on different topics.
It is, however, if you think about it, everybody kind of recruits people or knows people that, whether it's from school or university, from their direct network.
The self-replicating tendency.
Exactly.
Yes.
So if you haven't got those people in your network, or you haven't got somebody to put you in contact with them, how are you ever going to find them in the first place? So yes, I agree that it is sad that it didn't have these people in their networks initially, but at least they are trying to do something about it. Yes, I still think they've got a lot. Yeah, and they still definitely have a long way to go. And one thing I do want to say as well is that I don't know whether it will make a difference, but sometimes there is power in action. So at the moment, while the BBC are doing all this research and they're consulting the public on the future of the BBC, this is the time when we should be kind of emailing them and saying, we're not happy. We haven't got enough programmes on the BBC that represent us. This is what, and letting them know this is what we want. If every single black person in the UK messaged the BBC, rang the BBC, tweeted the BBC saying this is what we want, somebody has to take notice and hopefully take action.
Okay. Well, I guess it starts with NTV, so you heard it here first. Yeah. Alex?
I forgot. I did have a question, but it's totally gone out of my
mind.
Sorry.
Let me just get to Anika's thoughts then, Anika Allen, on the current debate about cutting back the BBC, because a number of people, including the Culture Secretary John Whittingham, have been sort of questioning the whole sort of raison d'etre of the BBC taking a significant licence fee, and there's been new sort of proposals for exemptions for over 75-year-olds to actually have no licence fee whatsoever. But I guess my question is that we're talking about moving the BBC into new directions to become some more reflective of black communities. How is this likely? How can this happen if at the same time the BBC is being cut back, as may happen?
How can they?
How can they move forward to increase racial diversity on the BBC if politicians are cutting back their budget at the same time?
Politicians may be cutting back the budget, but also, having years ago I worked at the BBC, not in the production capacity, because I worked somewhere else in production capacity after, but you can see that there's money that they spend kind of elsewhere that they can cut back on things inside the BBC, where they can make savings that could still help make good quality programming.
I call these middle managers that,
It's an institution, isn't it? I mean, a lot of times these institutions are, not run on the most efficient of lines, and I think there is a thing with the BBC, it's licensed payers' money, and a lot of people begrudge paying it. A lot of people begrudge paying it, and it is because of this wastefulness. And then we've seen in the last few years, obviously, things like, and I was bringing it up, but the child sex abuse scandals and things like that, and the complicity in a lot of the BBC, and a lot of payouts that they've made to people. Lots of discrimination and things, cases that have come from within their ranks over the years, where they've paid people off and that kind of stuff. And it's like, this is our money, but if you don't pay your licence fee, you can go to prison. So they're accountable to the public, and as black people, as taxpayers, we deserve to be reflected, and we should be able to kind of conscientiously object to paying it.
Of course, the whole issue about the middle manager in the BBC, of course, is sort of sent up in a satire that the BBC have called W1A, which that pokes fun at their own organisation and the amount of middle managers that they have. We're coming towards the end of the show, but just finally, Anika, Anika Allen. What would you like, in a nutshell, the BBC to look like with, say you were the BBC chairman?
If I was the BBC chairman, I'd want to see more black minority ethnic faces on TV in presenter roles as correspondents, and TV shows that are reflective of the community and what we know the black community is about, and just more refreshing content on TV and things that are positive and that's inspirational. We don't always want to kind of hear about the gangster or the drug dealer.
I know you wanted to close off, but have you seen that Cecile Emike series online that she's got called Strolling, and then she's got a little comedy thing called Aki and Saltfish?
Oh, you've seen Aki and Saltfish, yeah.
That would be a perfect little thing to bring onto, the BBC.
Well, it would absolutely, yeah. But we're just running out of time. So thank you so much, Anika Allen, for joining us, freelance journalist. Thank you also.
Thank you.
Earlier in the show, Ricardo Smith from the Lambeth Tigers Football Club, and also Mohammed Shafiq from the Ramadan Foundation. We'll be back this time, same place, same time next Thursday for more debate about politics and current affairs. You have a fantastic day, and we'll see you next week.
Something special is happening at Trinity Chapel as we advance in our year of manifestation. We welcome the General Overseer of the